Welcome to The New Economy. What's next? My guest today is Mr. Aaron Jones, a CPA. We're going to talk about the importance of numbers, but we're not going to talk about any specific numbers. So stay tuned. It's going to be an exciting show. Mr. Jones, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Sure, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
So who are you? Like what is it that you do?
Definitely, I'm the person to talk to about numbers, and that's accounting numbers, not gaming.
Yeah. You gotta be.
You have to add that in nowadays. But I'm a certified public accountant by profession, licensed in the United States under the state of New Hampshire, as well as here locally in the Bahamas with the Bahamas Institute of Chartered Accountants. I've been in practice for quite a while. Not wanting to talk my age, but borderline 20 years would be the range of experience that I've had in the accounting profession.
And you've kind of worn a lot of different hats. You know, accounting is wide. There's the auditing side, there's the helping clients do books side, and then there's financial services. You want to talk a little bit about some of that stuff?
Sure. So, like you mentioned, I do wear quite a bit of hats, and I have worn quite a bit of hats. I started out my career at Ernst & Young, and we did quite a bit of public auditing, and since then I've transitioned into the private sector, where more so the financial services and the small business consulting kind of took more of a front seat as opposed to the actual auditing. But I've had a wide range of industries over the years that I've represented as an accountant, and that ranges
Can you name a few for the guests?
Sure, that ranges from financial services straight down to the smaller mom and pop shops. We have represented clients in retail, wholesale industries, restaurants, pharmaceuticals, medical offices, and you name it, the list goes on. Tour operators, mechanic shops, construction.
So for the folks at home, why get an accountant? It's for those numbers, so you can have the information you need to make certain decisions. And so that's the reason. That's the whole reason that you have accountants, is that they do these things. You want to add to that?
Sadly enough, the trend we see is most persons like a lawyer or a doctor, they think they don't need an accountant until they do need one. And most of the time it's a bit late. So the catch-up exercise is a bit more extensive and even expensive than had they have done it in advance and prepared for it. For instance, if a company wants to get financing for whatever reason, most lenders are not going to just hand over the cash unless you can exercise the ability to repay that cash, and that would be in the form of some reporting. Or on the conversely, if some regulatory pressure such as inland revenue shows up at your door and says, hey, you owe X amount of money, you would need to either dispute that or verify that, and that too comes back in line with having some form of financial records available.
Yep. So it's financial information is one of the three parts of business. So there's the sales side of business, where we bring in the customers in. There's the product value creation side of the business. You're exchanging that whatever it is that you create for value, for the customer's value. And then the third part is the reporting side. And that's, that information side of the business, which is a big part of it is those numbers that nobody ever wants to talk about on TV, but it's super important, super important.
Decisions would be driven by the financial information that comes mostly in the form of reporting, right? So back in the mom and pop scenarios, we typically ran businesses where if we started off with $100 and we ended up with 120, we felt as though we made a profit in the business that's successful. But that's not always the case. If you actually follow the reporting, you may have more cash, but you also owe someone $40, which means that your 120 now needs to be reduced by the 40.
I know you've seen this kind of business before. That's typical of liquor stores, right? Because they have such cash coming in. People say, yeah, I'm making all this money, but your margins are so small that you have to be very careful how you manage that.
Yeah, a lot of businesses fall into the trap, even now, particularly in the VAT regime, where you've collected cash that might not be yours, but you have a really healthy bank account. And if you make the mistake of spending that cash for either personal use or business use, you would soon find that the day is going to come when you have to pay the piper. And now you are in a sticky situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Super, super important. We're going to cut to commercial, and then we're going to be right back. And we're going to talk a little bit about you and some of the business experiences. Obviously not going to name any names, but that you've experienced. So stay tuned.
Hi, I'm D.R.C. Ramming, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Arawak X. Arawak X is a fully regulated securities exchange in the Bahamas. We are the financial gateway to the Caribbean. We match investors with startups and high-growth companies over the internet. Come talk to us at Arawak X to learn more about our diverse portfolio.
So we're talking about there's obviously the positive side. You get all your books working, you're able to make better decisions. But what about also some of these horror stories? If you might, of course, don't name any names, but like where you walk in and I don't know, what are some of the horror stories and things that you've learned in the various industries that you've been in?
The most horrific experience as an accountant is where you kind of get scenarioed into someone suggesting that you do something unethical on their behalf. And that's something that does come up more frequently than you would imagine, especially with persons trying to evade customs, evade VAT, evade other forms of payment that they should make. They have real clever scenarios, and if you don't focus on the specifics of the scenario, it's sometimes really convincing that you'll fall into the trap of assisting them in making these fraudulent claims for customs, and maybe it's not supposed to be charged. The government is overcharging us, so we need to take back the money that the government should have paid. And it's a whole range of scenarios that you kind of just want to get out of the room once the conversation starts to head in that direction.
Yeah, because it's you got to pay your taxes. I mean, we live in a society. The society got to function, and we're talking about on this show. We're talking about good, legitimate business. How do you make sure you have the right information so that you can make better decisions, not so you have the right information so you can evade or trick somebody?
Correct. And that's exactly it. Accountants need to remain ethical at all time. And if you find that you have an accountant who's not ethical, maybe it's time to reconsider that relationship before you both end up going down the wrong path.
Or in the newspaper. So
All fine playing, right?
yeah, exactly, doing the bike lane shuffle. So no, it's super important. Like I stress this to viewers at home. The new economy is about good value adding business, whatever that is. Like, how do we take the rules of this land, able to add services to each other, add services to folks abroad, products and services, and make an honest buck, because that's what it's supposed to be about. That's what society's supposed to be about.
Yeah, well,
With the onset of COVID in particular, it kind of fast tracked the development into the digital world, and the world itself got that much smaller, that much quicker. So we now do honestly compete in a global marketplace for goods and services. As simple as, say, buying a pair of shoes. Traditionally, you would have went into the store and tried them on, picked it out. Now you have the online shopping and the shipping. That's so much easier now to have access to these things until maybe you weigh out the benefits of going to the store versus just shopping online.
And it's an opportunity as well for I imagine for yourself. You can now solicit business from different places.
You can, with some restriction. Some jurisdictions still have local requirements for certain types of engagements, but
Okay.
on a broad scale, yes, it does open doors for cross-border services, and that's a positive thing for us, but it also has a double edge in that other countries can now seek work from the Bahamas and take away from the local professions as well. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, it's interesting, this globalized world. Obviously we're doing this interview from two different locations.
Right.
This was unimaginable. Even though the technology existed, I don't think most people had accepted this form of communication before. And it's here and it's not going away. So we have to figure out how to use it and then run after it.
Yeah, and it's funny that you should mention that.
Because one of the things that also we now have to accept that isn't going anywhere is the ability to work virtually or remotely. It's a concept in the Bahamas in particular. It hasn't been so widely accepted prior to the COVID-19 outbreak. Now that we've seen that it is possible to work, can we really go back to brick and mortar only type structures where we require persons to sit in the office from 9 a.m. to 5
Yeah.
p.m.
I personally, like, we at Arawak-X, we try to do flexi work. So be flexible with people's time, treat them like professionals. But we have a lot of knowledge workers. I couldn't imagine how, where you physically need to be in the office. That's going to be a little bit more difficult for people, those industries. But we like it. People are productive. People don't have to sit through the hours and hours of morning traffic, and then pretend not to be pissed off all day. so I generally would think that staff is pretty happy with it.
Yeah, and I'll also, as an employer, you save money on tea and coffee if nobody comes to the office, right?
Yeah. I mean, although I do like the snack fridge, I'm not gonna lie. I think that's why people come to work, even though we have the thing. But it's certainly interesting how that's gonna affect like modern day, organizational behavior. Because like you said, it's proven that people can work from home. Now, it's just about figuring out the best mix of that. And I know for the women on staff, they're really happy because they get to about it, because then they can factor in the childcare and home care responsibilities. And if they're working from home, then do we really care that they're whether they're doing the work at 2 a.m. or whether they're sitting at a desk, as long as the work gets done? No, not really. I mean, well, you shouldn't.
I kind of share that opinion. I don't see the need to limit working hours from 9 to 5. I'm more a fan of task-oriented deadlines in that if you work better at 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, it's up to you as long as there's some generalized meeting time for the team to collaborate as needed. And there has to just be deadlines for every element of what needs to be done.
Yeah.
As long as that's
done
done,
and
everyone's
everyone's ticking the
ticking
boxes, let's
that's
widen
widen
up
up
the
the day
and keep it
it
going.
So I'm assuming that your firm has, why don't you remind the guests, I don't think you actually said what your firm's name is, and I imagine you guys are, have moved to that system as well.
Right. So the firm I operate for consultant purposes is called Oracle Business Partners. And yes, we have reduced our real estate for office space, and we now have a shared office space where persons kind of use it like a hotel system. If you want to work in office, you just kind of put a notice in advance. I'll be working on Monday from 12 to 4, whatever the time is. And if there's no one there, we kind of shut the lights off and save on electricity, right?
It is a new economy. And so we're gonna take a pause right here, go to commercial break, and then when we come back, we're gonna continue to talk about the future and what do you think the future for accounting, but also for the future for our country is gonna look like. So stay tuned.
Arawak X opens frontier and emerging markets where you can discover innovative companies that have high growth potential. We support initiatives that promote financial inclusion and social justice through equal access to investment opportunities and capital. Come talk to us at Arawak X to learn more about our diverse portfolio.
So we're back, and we've been talking about kind of the changes in the business landscape that has happened because of COVID. We're moving from these offices, everybody getting, you got to wake up at 6 a.m. to get the kids ready, take them to school, and then you got to slug through morning traffic to be on your job for 9:30, and then you have to somehow not be pissed off that one of them boxcar tried to cut you off, and then be productive for the rest of the day until about 3, and then you got to go. But COVID has kind of changed all of that. The lockdowns have changed all of that. It's freed up a lot more time, and people have found that they can work remotely. Do you think this is a trend, that this adoption of technology as a trend is going to keep advancing?
Sure, technology's not gonna wait on us. And if you remember, again, not speaking my age, but growing up watching a show called The Jetsons, and we had guys flying around in spaceships and doing all this crazy things, right?
But now we kind of open our eyes to see some of those crazy things weren't so crazy at all. And it's just a matter of time before it all comes into place. So in the workplace now, in industry for businesses, we see a major shift into process automation, and everything is going digital. You have cashless businesses, online services, and the like. So again, the physical brick and mortar structure for any business now needs to be reconsidered. Even in, say, a retail space, you definitely want to have an online presence that caters to delivery of products, if at all possible.
Yeah, because there's just so many options right now. The global world has made it. I mean, technology basically makes things borderless, and so we have to be prepared for it. but also there's great opportunity in it. Like, I mean, the world is a very, very big place, and a big place to make some money too.
I'll share a story with you. So maybe 10, 12, 13, sometime years ago, myself along with a partner, we started a business. We call it dine-in delivery service. And it's the really archaic version of those app-based digital food delivery services that exist today. My wife was also very instrumental in that. But back then, we didn't have any apps. We didn't have any.
That's right. That would have been right before the iPhone.
Yeah, there was
So it
no
would have been-
Google Maps. There was no GPS location. All we had was a lady in the office taking phone calls and placing phone calls to different restaurants, calling drivers on cell phones and walkie-talkies, and just trying to make it work. There was no real-time communication with restaurants to say place the orders or get feedback for items that's not available. So when someone call and order mashed potato as a side, and we then had to physically contact the restaurant to place the order, and they say, hey, sorry, no mashed potatoes today. You then have to hang up the phone, get back on with the customer, sorry, what would you want instead of? And that was really not efficient. Today, you have the app-based model, and you pretty much have a live stream into the restaurant itself where you place the order directly for only what's available. They get it, no phone call needed. And you pay online. The driver doesn't need to go to the gas station to get change for 100, and it's all so much easier, right? So just to use that as a possible scenario, where we're at now, I see 10 years later, we're gonna look back at today and say, oh, things were so complicated then compared to where it's gonna be. So with that comes opportunity for businesses to take advantage of, and education is the key, just to kind of stay abreast of the technology as it comes out. There's so much on the market, you're probably not gonna be very familiar with all, but
Why don't you give a pointer or two for how to imagine to stay abreast for you and your business? You subscribe to industry newsletters, technology. You're keeping an eye on what other competitors in your space are doing, et cetera.
right. So there's quite a bit of tools that's available. I never claim to be IT savvy or an IT professional. So usually I have a few persons that kind of frequent that space, and we pretty much do knowledge sharing with them.
So,
So you're part of a mastermind group then? A
correct.
group of, yeah, okay. For folks at home, what the mastermind group is, it's just other professionals, maybe in the same industry, maybe different industries. You get together and you say, hey, I got this problem. And then somebody else will be like, oh, well, we solved it this way. And that's how you share knowledge in business. It's done in communities. It's not, no one is just suddenly endowed with all of the information. It doesn't work like that. It's too complicated.
Those masterminds, again, don't have to be limited to the Bahamas.
That's
But-
right. That's right.
Premature response, you just Google search, right? Whatever it is you're actually trying to do, say delivery service app, just Google it and see what comes up, and use that as a conversation starter in your group to say, hey, have you heard about this? Have you heard about that? How is it compared to whatever else you know about? And you start to get some traction, and you see there's some things that catch your attention, some things don't, but it's a real wide variety of apps out there and different software purchases. You don't want to just start buying stuff.
No, because technology is really expensive. And when you make a mistake, it's really, really expensive. And I'm a technologist, right? I have an engineering degree. And I know that, an engineer, I'm also kind of a salesperson. They're going to sell you stuff you don't need. That's what they do. So you got to make sure that it's really adding value to what you're doing. And it's solutions oriented, not just technology focused.
Right.
Because there's a lot of really cool tech out there that does no business solution.
And you know what else is out there? A lot of fraudsters who who just want you to put that credit card information in, and once you set it up, you'll find that your funds start to be depleted 1 cent, then it goes to 10 cents, then $1, and they keep testing and testing and testing until they've cleaned you out. So that too, as a business owner, you want to be aware of monitoring your balances, because fraud is real and fraudsters don't sleep. As technology advances, they also advance in their fraud schemes. And it's often too late that we find out that we've been encountered by a fraudster.
And it's the internet. You gotta, in many ways, it's the wild, wild west
It is.
of humanity, the good and the bad.
And it's so easy to gain access with just a password per se. So now we have dual that word.
Authentication. Yeah. It's I mean, I have mine set on my iPhone for the facial recognition and stuff like that. So
Okay.
it's the world is very different.
Yeah.
And it's getting crazy. So it's going to be overly complicated for some people to do simple things. But the security measures are definitely needed, because with just a password, I can access your bank accounts and do transfers and do everything else. So definitely that added layer of protection is needed.
When so do you we're gonna wrap up the show, but do you have any words for any new or upcoming or businesses that are looking to grow and need some help? Because I'm sure that's what you provide some of the consultancy for. Do you have any words for them?
Right. So I'll bucket them into two categories, right? One is the business that has an annual turnover of $100,000 or more. In that category, you're regulated by the Department of Inland Revenue to have your turnover certified each year by a licensed accountant. So you're gonna have to do it anyway, and you may as well start a relationship with an accountant that you can use for that service and also for any other consultant needs that you may have in setting up the operation, just kind of seeing if you're doing it correctly, or advice that you may need from time to time. And then you have the category of persons who fall underneath the $100,000 annual revenue threshold. Those persons might not need a full-time accountant per se, but it will also be advisable, even if just for the initial setup and periodically going forward, to engage an accountant to maybe do hourly based services, not a whole lot of cost, but just to keep you on the right track. Because again, you may find yourself in a situation where you need to borrow money or produce a financial statement for whatever other reason, and you don't want to be completely so far off track until it's now headache.
Yeah. That's the worst case scenario, where you have those boxes full of receipts and you just hand them off to the poor accountant, and you're just like, I need this by tomorrow. Yeah. So no, people don't do that. Don't do that to your accountants.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they do. Mr. Aaron Jones, accountant and CPA business advisor. Thank you for coming on the show. I know you've shared a lot of wisdom with folks. If they can get in contact with you, how do they get in contact with you?
Sure. You can contact me via email, a.jones@oraclebp.com. That's ORACLEBP.com. Or you can give us a call at 242-325-2511.
Thank you for coming on the show.
And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
So that was Mr. Aaron Jones, and we'll see you next time.